Well, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and also a special part of the Toy Isle podcast. Today, we're going to be doing a special interview. This is something we've never really done before. This is a first opportunity to get an official look and hear at none other than Uncle Tim, my uncle. So thank you so much, Uncle Tim, for being with us today here
My
on
pleasure.
YouTube channel as well as the Toy Isle podcast. And if you've not done so already, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and the podcast and leave a nice review. We always appreciate all of that. But it's good to have, my family here. And, Tim, you have been instrumental in getting us here today. If it wasn't for you, I would not have, a love of collecting and anything like that. And you have been, the catalyst to my love of everything sci-fi, comics, Star Wars, all that stuff. And we're going to talk all about that in just a minute. But I would like for you to kind of introduce yourself. Tell me what got you into collecting? What was your first thing you did? Was it an action figure? Was it a comic? What is your beginning story?
Well, I guess it all started with me seeing Star Wars in the theater back in 1976, I guess, 77, whenever it first came out. Yeah. And right after that, they Kenner released 12 action figures from the first movie. And I wanted them so bad. And so I started collecting them. And there were certain ones that were really hard to find. So my grandparents actually got involved in helping me, and they started. They would call during the day and find out which places were going to get shipments and things like that, and then they would pick me up for school, and we would go and wait in lines to make sure that we got those. And so I ended up getting the first 12 figures, got all of those, and that really started it. From there, anything that came out Star Wars, I had to have it, had to collect it. From there, I kind of branched out into comic books, and then from there, it just went G.I. Joe, Transformers, yeah, pretty much a little bit of everything.
And we'll certainly talk about your comic collecting in just a second, because I know that's been a bread and butter of yours for quite some time. But it's funny that you say, your grandparents got you kind of, I guess, hooked essentially on the drug. And
Right.
Your mom, my grandma, got me hooked on the drug
Yep.
because I remember going down to the basement in, I guess, her house and finding your old action figures. And that's what got me going because I
Yeah.
found your old G.I. Joes. And I'll never forget, it was a Gamorrean guard was the first figure I ever
Yep.
found. It was a
Yeah.
Gamorrean guard that was in the basement there. And, I love how our stories come full circle because I found this blue chest, I suppose, that became the toy chest. And that's
Right.
where I kept the figures. And I guess when I started getting a little bit older, I passed it back to you and you used it, for you and your son. And then I
Right.
guess through some wheeling and dealing, I guess this past Thanksgiving, maybe it was, is when you finally relinquished it back to me. And so I have the blue chest in my possession again. And I always consider that to be one of my holy grails in my collection because that's what started it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that chest. It had, I don't know where it originally came from either.
Why?
But yeah, I used that to store my GI Joes in for a long time. Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I know that you say you got a GI Joe shirt on right now. I got my Star Wars shirt on right now. What would you say is your primary passion? Would it be GI Joe? Would it be Star Wars? What is your primary passion?
That's tough. I guess I would probably have to say comics. I ended up selling all my GI Joe stuff, and at one point I sold a lot of my Star Wars stuff and used that money to buy comic books. So I guess comic books would kind of be my thing. Although later in life I've gotten hooked on Legos, so been buying a lot of those. But I would have to say probably comic books have been is my number one.
I remember going, when we were growing up, or I was growing up rather, you were continuing to age, and you're my grandmaster, you're my Jedi master that kind of brought me up as a Padawan. And I have a funny story that we'll tell at the end of this, and I'm sure you may know what I'm talking about when I was scolded. But
Okay.
we'll bring that back up. But we used to go to, I guess, Queen City Comics and all kinds of different places, and always watching you collect. Let me ask you this: how many comic books do you have? And what is your most favorite line?
I think last time I checked, I had about 18,000 comics. They're all stored in, bags and boxes and stuff in my basement. Probably this is painful to talk about, but I had Giant Size X-Men #1, which was when they rebooted the team with Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and I had that. It was probably my most valuable comic book, and I kept it in a bag. And one night, one fateful night, I thought about taking it out and just looking through it, and I did. It was sitting on the floor, and one of my cats came rampaging through the house and ended up ripping the cover off the book. So I have Giant Size X-Men #1 with no cover. So it went from being worth, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to pretty much worthless.
But you have a great story, I guess, to tell on this podcast, right?
Sure, yeah, there is that.
But the collecting gods have shined upon you, and rewarded you, and we'll talk about that right at the end of this. So we appreciate your diligence continuing. Would you say that you are a Marvel person, a DC person? Where do you kind of come out on all that?
Oh, I am definitely a Marvel person. I have, as far as DC goes, I like Batman and I have some Batmans, but Marvel is where it was at. I mean, for decades, I consumed everything Marvel put out there, and yeah, I'm Marvel all the way, and I'm so blessed that I actually got to meet Stan before he passed. So that was pretty much the culmination. After that, I was like, well, I can die happy now.
I know you've met plenty of, because you're a big Comic-Con person. You love to go to conventions and such. And I'm looking forward, once all this, pandemic stuff is over, for when they kind of reopen those. I plan to go to the big Cincinnati one with you when we get back up there. And that's good to go. But I know you've met a lot of celebrities. You met a lot of those. You go to all of those. Marvel is my thing too. For some reason, I've never really connected with the DC world. I would say, the DC characters are probably more well known, but for some reason they just don't connect with me. I mean, I like the Batman things, but I just don't get into the Superman or Justice League or anything like that. Marvel's always been my go-to. Last question: what would you say is your most valuable comic that you have? Is it still, well, obviously the X-Men used to be, but what would you say is your #1 thing you still have?
Probably my most valuable is I have X-Men '95, which was the first. I believe that was the first issue after Giant Size X-Men. So it was the first regular series X-Men that had the new team of Storm, Colossus, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and then the one right after that, I believe it's '96, is the death of Thunderbird. So I have both of those. I think those are probably my two most valuable comics, and of course they never come out of the bag now. I've learned my lesson.
Learned your lesson. Endgame are you just gonna pass those on to Brandon, your son, or what is your end game with all of them? Will you ever stop collecting, or what will you plan to do?
I don't think I'll ever stop collecting. And as far as what happens to them, I don't know. I've actually been talking with my wife about maybe opening up a comic book store, and if so, that would be a good starting inventory, I guess.
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't know. I've told my son Brandon, after I'm gone, you can do whatever you want with them. But yeah, I'll never stop collecting ever.
Awesome. And that is where I'm at, is that for some reason there was the dark days, or before the Empire, there was a time where I got out of collecting. I was collecting since I was 5-6 years old, and then there went through a phase. Maybe I was trying to grow up, I suppose. And I'm disappointed that you enabled me to sell them all. You drove me to the place to get rid of, my massive.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Because, I had to grow, because it helps me value what I have now. And I guess that's the life lesson. But I remember when I said, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I'm trying to grow up. But, I've never grown up. And so I wish I could go back to do that. And, you and we've never grown up. We just get older. That's essentially all it is. So let's shift gears for a second and talk about something that's kind of come into your world. And I know you talk about Legos and such, but Pokemon is kind of a big thing for you recently, and I don't think it's something you sought out, but tell us a little bit about that and kind of where you are in this journey of Pokemon.
Okay. Well, my son, he was really into Pokemon when he was younger. So we got all the cards, and we played Pokemon, and of course he got like all the buy everything. And then he got a little bit older and he kind of, just forgot about it. So we kind of put him away in boxes and pretty much forgot about him. And then about 2 years ago, my stepfather, my wife's dad, passed away, and he was a big time hoarder. I mean, he hoarded everything. And so it took us months to clean out his house. And we found all kinds of strange things. We found tubs filled with Beanie Babies and just all kinds of wild stuff. But he had boxes of Pokemon stuff. And he had like not only like he had about I think about 20 binders filled with Pokemon cards, like 3-ring binders. He had just boxes of just loose cards. He had things still in packages, boxes, and he had like merchandise as well. And so he had like clothes and coloring books and comic books and lunch boxes and pretty much anything you can think of. He had Pokemon, and we just kind of put it all in our basement, kind of forgot about it. And it's just had been sitting in our basement for 2 years. And then recently I lost my job. And so I was like, well, I've got all this time. I'm going to go through some of that stuff down in the basement. So I started going through all this Pokemon stuff. And I was like, maybe I can sell it on eBay and, make a little bit of money or something. Well, once I started researching it, I was like, wow, this stuff is crazy what this stuff is selling for. And when I started looking, he had some incredibly valuable stuff, including the original 1999 booster boxes. There were 6 of them, still in the original packaging with the Wizard of the Coast symbol on the package, on the plastic. And that he had about a dozen different theme decks. And like I said, he had a bunch of like really rare old cards. So started going through that kind of stuff and selling them on eBay.
Nothing hotter than Pokemon right now.
That's what I'm finding out. Yeah.
Yes. And the fact, I mean, there may be people listening to this or watching this right now, and when you said they found the original booster boxes, their heart may have sunk, but continue on.
And again, we always, whenever, I think pretty much every collector has regrets about either the one that got away or the oops kind of thing. And so we had these Pokemon boxes, and my son was like, hey, let's see what's in them. And I'm like, okay. So we cracked open one, ripped them all open, and we found like I think we found like 2 out of the foil Charizards, and we were like, oh, that's cool. And then we started in on a second box, and my wife came home and she's like, what are you guys doing? She's like, I just did an internet search and these things are worth like tons of money. And I'm like, oops, here we were, just the 2 goofballs just ripping these things open.
More people than the X-Men comic story.
Yeah. And so she stopped us. So we would have had 6 boxes, but now we have 4 that are still open. And so I'm trying to sell them on eBay. I sold most of the theme boxes. I've got a couple more that I'm trying to sell. I had an original Pokemon fossil box that sold for about $9,800. I did have an auction for one of the booster boxes. It went for like $31,000. But as soon as the auction was over, the guy contacted me and said he had no intention of paying. So, So I'm really coming. I've never sold anything on eBay before, and I really knew nothing about Pokemon when I started this journey at all. But there's a lot of people on eBay who are not good about paying and doing things in good faith. I'm finding out. So I went through, I did the second chance offer with the top 3 people. None of them even emailed me back. So I'm working with some other people, some other bidders to see if I can get these things sold. So that's where I am kind of right now.
Well, I will say that I've had that same experience when I was, I used my collection to fund my collection. That's what a lot of collectors do.
I did the same thing.
Yeah. And so one of the most disheartening things is when you are going through eBay and you're like, oh my goodness, look, people are bidding. And then you finally get to the last 5 minutes and it says, hey, it's been won. And the invoice has been sent. You click on the thing and it's got nothing but negative feedback. And it just says, will not pay, block it. I'm like, dang it. What am I supposed to do? And then, like you said, those second chance offers, and it's kind of hit and miss. But I mean, you're sitting on a gold mine. I mean, you really are. And I know that there are people that want them. I guess it's just, as you said, they're high ticket items and not everyone has the ability to just, go grab that off the shelf. I think you told me that, some shady person wanted to meet you in the parking lot. Do you want to share that story?
Yeah, one guy said that he was willing to pay cash. He was willing to meet in person. But yeah, he's like, it has to be, like at night by myself. Um, bring the box. And I was like, how stupid does this guy think I am? So I emailed him back and I said, you got to pay me through PayPal, and when I see it, you'll get the box. And he just said, never mind, which made me think that yeah, he was not up on the up and up. So
And nothing like meeting somebody in the back of a Lowe's parking lot at night with a $50,000 card box. I mean, that should
yeah,
go real well for you. Cash
yeah,
only, by the way.
yeah, yeah. It's scary enough taking them to the post office and say, yeah, can I get $10,000 worth of insurance on this box? I mean, you might as well say, yeah, there's a gold bar in here. Can you take good care of it for me?
I
Yeah.
mean, say what you want about the post office in Newman. We all know how those go.
Right. Right.
Seinfeld has completely, ruined me for any hope of the post office. Quick rabbit trail. One of my favorite episodes is when Newman is trying to get his transfer to move to Hawaii, and so Jerry has to help him, and
Yeah.
they go through the whole mail thing. It's like, I didn't get the transfer. Why? Well, too many people got their mail. No one gets that much mail on time. He's like, you tried too hard. And so, I mean, goodness. And, the postal service is a dilemma anyway. And whenever I sell my things, I'm always wondering, like, do I really want to put the insurance on it? Should I just save the extra $5? But yeah, I mean, when you say, yeah, $20,000 of insurance, let's just hope for the best here.
Right.
So
Right.
you've moved out some inventory. You're, moving on with those things. I mean, do you think like you'll get them all sold through auction, or you're going to enlist like an auction house, or what are your thoughts on that?
Right now, like I said, I've got two different guys that I'm talking to that are wanting to buy pretty much everything for one price.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of seeing which guy is willing to bid the highest, go the highest, and that's where we'll go. So I'm hoping to get rid of them soon, but we'll see.
Cool. Well, we will shift gears as we wrap up kind of this conversation. I want to talk about, my passion, and that's Star Wars and the state of the franchise. I know it started with you in 1977, and Tim, I love you, and you've been my rock for quite some time in this collecting world, but you and I don't see eye to eye on the most recent, I guess, Star Wars films, and so I just want to talk about the state of the franchise. I think we both agree that The Mandalorian's fantastic.
Awesome. Yes,
Are you all caught up on all those?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, we it's a family event. Every Friday, everybody knows Friday night we're going to be watching The Mandalorian. It's a family thing now. And yeah, we all just absolutely adore it. My wife is so crazy over Baby Yoda. She buys anything that has Baby Yoda on it. So our house is filled with Baby Yoda merchandise that she has purchased.
See, they knew what they were doing because they already have us. They have the guys,
Right.
and they're like, "What's the one thing we can do to rope in the rest of the demographic?" And there it
Right.
is, a child,
Yep.
baby. They nailed it. So
Yep.
we agree. Did you watch Clone Wars? Do you like Clone Wars?
Oh, I loved Clone Wars.
Okay.
Clone Wars was amazing.
So we all love Clone Wars. We all love Mandalorian, but we both do not see eye to eye on the quote sequel trilogy. What is your opinion? And we still love each other. No problems. What is your opinion? Share with the audience your opinion on the sequel trilogy and why you appreciate it.
Okay. The first one, The Force Awakens, I liked because it was pretty much nothing but fan service. I mean, he knew what the fans loved, and that's pretty much what you got. A lot of people said, well, it's so similar to the first one, the New Hope. And it's like, well, yeah, because we love New Hope. So the fact that it was like New Hope for a new generation, I mean, it was awesome. So I love Force Awakens. I thought it was great. It was my son was devastated at Han Solo's death. We were actually in the theater, and when that lightsaber went into Han, we were packed theater. He leaped to his feet and yelled "no" at the top of his lungs, just like Luke or Anakin.
Yeah.
He's like "no," and then he like looked to me and he's like, "He killed Han Solo." He was so upset. But we really liked the first one, Force Awakens. The second one had some issues. I'm a big Adam Driver, Kylo Ren fan. So I thought he was great in it. I like the Rey stuff. I know a lot of people were upset about Luke because they said he wasn't heroic, but I mean, if you watch the first trilogy, the he was kind of a whiner up until the last one. He was kind of a whiner baby. So the fact that he, in his old age, he was like kind of a grumpy curmudgeon, I didn't see that as a big stretch for him. Um, but pretty much the whole thing with Finn, I thought that was just, I mean, it was just a waste. I mean, you could just cut that whole part out of the movie and not miss really anything. And I thought the to base an action sequence on two spaceships going through space until one of them runs out of gas was probably about one of the dumbest tropes I've ever seen when it comes to, you know,
a slow speed car chase is what it was.
Exactly. It was a slow speed car chase and until one of them ran out of gas. I mean, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in any movie, much less one of this magnitude. So there was some good, there was some bad with the second one, like I said, and then the third one, I thought JJ did the best he could trying to wrap up things. He pretty much negated the entire second movie, which I was sort of okay with.
I mean, you saw all the blatant middle fingers that he gave to Rian Johnson, right?
Yes. And I wasn't too upset about that. And I understand that he had really 2 movies worth of material that he was trying to pack into one.
Right.
And so there was a lot of stuff that just went unanswered. The whole thing with Finn, I've got something to say, and then he never says it throughout the whole movie. I was like, come on. I mean, you can't just leave people hanging like that. So there was more to like than to dislike with the third one, really. Again, there was a lot of fan service and stuff like that. And I went into it understanding that he was really just trying to right the ship and cram as much as he could. So, you know, I kind of thought I liked it as an ending. And
did you feel
as a whole
satisfying conclusion?
Yeah, I was satisfied at the conclusion. But I think probably the biggest failing was them going with different directors for the trilogy, because right. You've got 2 competing views, and I just thought I don't know what the thinking was in that. I think that was bad planning on whoever, I guess Kathleen Kennedy or whoever was in charge of deciding who was going to direct. You should have had one person for all 3 movies with one vision, but the fact they had multiple visions, it was just a mess. And I think I remember telling you, if you watch the first and the third movie and just pretend the second movie never happened, it actually works out pretty well.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
It does, and I appreciate your thoughtful insight on that. And as I've said, you are the patriarch of our collecting family, and your opinion, because you got to sit in the theater for 1977 Star Wars, you got to experience that. So I didn't get that opportunity. All I got was the Kroger VHSs to kind of watch it on TV.
Or the George Lucas redos that were abominations.
Oh, so you're not a big fan of the special editions?
I actually have a T-shirt that says Han shot first, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, there we go. I appreciate that, because I think most people, and let's go back to Solo real quick, the Solo movie where, it emphasizes that Han did shoot first when he shoots Woody Harrelson.
I almost cheered when Woody Harrelson was still monologuing and Han just shot him. Yeah, I almost cheered because I was like, that's how it's supposed to be.
That is the Han Solo we know. That is the Han Solo we know. I mean, there's nothing cooler than when he says, "Yeah, I bet you have," and blows him away. That was so cool. That was so cool. So as we wrap things up, I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say money is no option, whether it be a figure, whether it be a prop memorabilia, comic. If you had unlimited resources, what would be the one thing that you'd want to add to your collection and say, "This is my Holy Grail"?
I'm kind of 2 minds. If I go with like the nostalgic route, probably would be the really old original Death Star playset. Just because I played the heck out of that thing when I was a kid. Yeah. It had like the garbage compactor with little foam garbage that you could crank to move the walls. It had like the big laser cannon. It had like the bridge that Luke and Leia could swing over. And I mean, it was, for me, when I got that, yeah, it was just a dream come true. And I just played the absolute heck out of that thing. I loved it. So I would love to have that back. I'm guessing it's probably worth a ton of money. I don't know, but
Yeah.
for nostalgia, that would probably be what I would most want back. Now, speaking strictly financially, I would like to have my giant size X-Men back in normal condition. But yeah, I'd have to say that Death Star. But I had all the original, those old toys, and I see them now, and I'm like, I had that, I had that, I had that, and I wish I still had them. But then I think what I did the same thing you did. I sold most of my Star Wars stuff, and I used that money to buy comic books.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel that it was wasted because I just kind of invested in something else I loved. So, but I still have some regrets about it.
Yeah. And I remember one other thing is that when I went and found all your stuff in Grandma's basement, I remember you did have, I think, forgive me if that's not what it was, but it was like a Cobra base,
Yeah, the Terradrome.
Terradrome, yeah. I mean, that was a cool toy right there.
That was it was huge too. It was huge.
Yeah, it was under the stairs, right next to Bob's Golf Clubs.
Yeah.
Where it was. Did you ever have the USS Flag?
I did not. That was by that time. I was probably in my teens, upper teens, and so I was funding them out of my own part-time or not, but minimum wage job working at a restaurant. That was funding my collecting at the time, and it was just way too expensive. But I saved up a long time just to get the Terradrome. So yeah, that was just way too expensive for me at the time.
A little rich for your blood, I guess. Then
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm going to tell one story and we'll wrap it up with this because this is one of the ones that always stuck with me. And I guess because it scarred me so much is that you still play D&D, Dungeons and Dragons?
I do.
So I think you probably know where I'm going with this story is that I remember, I guess we came over to hang out at your place while Mom and Dad went on a date or something. Anyway, you were watching me and my sister. And we came over and I remember you had the miniatures out on the table that you were painting. And I guess you had just put a fresh coat on it. And naturally, a little kid like me sees these miniatures on the table and I start, picking them up and playing with them. And I remember you're like, what are you doing? Oh no. And then you walked me over to the bathroom and was washing all the paint off my hands. And I felt like I just wronged you so bad because I'd let you down. I messed up your you scolded me. But I mean it when I say that, thank you for opening my eyes to this world that I love. And, I love that, if the good Lord allows, for me and my wife to have a kid of our own one day, to be able to do the same thing, for him. My dad always, got me all the Power Rangers and all that stuff, but, he really wasn't a fan, I suppose. He just got the appeasement, to make kid happy. But you have been the fan that kind of drove my fandom. And so I've always appreciated that. And I thank you for coming on with us and sharing a little bit of your collecting story and, how you got here and kind of where you may end up going. But I'm excited for the fandom. I'm excited for, Marvel and WandaVision and all that stuff coming up. Phase 4 of the MCU. And if you don't mind, maybe we can, do it again, rap about other things
Absolutely.
In the coming future. And once again, thank you so much, Uncle Tim, for being a part of this. And those that were able to listen, let me know down in the comments if there is something you want me to ask Uncle Tim on the next one, if there's a comic that you were looking for, and say, hey, does he have that one? I can forward that to him. But make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you've not done so already. For those on the Toy Aisle podcast right now, as I said, make sure to listen to us every Wednesday is when we drop those new episodes. We always appreciate it. But thank you, everyone, for coming along with us on this journey. And we will talk to you in our next episode.